Shalom, welcome to Challenging Torah. We're in the challenge of the portion of Noach. The portion of Noach actually in Genesis 6 begins at the end of the chapter before, where violence has covered the land. As it says at the end of that portion, the Lord saw how great was man's wickedness on earth, how every plan devised by his mind was nothing but evil all the time, and God regretted that he made human beings. And he said, I regret the birds, the bees, the creeping things, the birds of the sky. I regret, quote, that I have made them. Remember that argument with the angels about should we or shouldn't we? God is sorry that he's made humankind, and violence has filled the earth. Not really great for the second book of our formation story. Hamas, violence, is everywhere here. And it's described as corruption, robbery, gezel, the word is robbery, of small things as well as big, and mostly sexual pandemonium. Everybody, everything is sleeping with everything else. There are no guidelines, there is no family, everything has fallen apart. And Noach, we are told, Tzaddik tamim b'doroto, and Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his age. What does that mean to be a righteous man, blameless in one's own age? The Midrash Rabbah has an interesting take on it, which says, Tzaddik b'doroto, quote, they are quoting an earlier piece that says, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah had a discussion, and Rabbi Yehuda said, well, in his generation he was considered a righteous man, but had he lived in any other generation, like the generation of Samuel or Moses, he wouldn't have been considered so righteous. And then Rabbi Nehemiah says, if he was a righteous man in this generation, how much more righteous would he have been if he'd managed to live in a time where there were some sort of moral guidelines? So the Midrash is, there's a story of an individual who opens up a barrel of wine, and there he finds that it's turned to vinegar. The same thing with the second barrel of wine. On the third barrel of wine, he found it only to be sour, and so he took it. The other person said to him, but that barrel is sour. And he answered back, is there any better? Rabbi Nehemiah, of course, says, well, he compares that to a flask of perfume that's buried in a graveyard. How much it can faintly smell underneath the earth, but when it's released, how fabulous the smell will be. Frankly, right now, and I know we're supposed to keep these evergreen, which means this talk should work 5 years from now. Unfortunately, even though I'm going to refer to current politics, it probably will work 5 years from now. Certainly 8 when we're back again in an election. Because nothing at this moment actually passes the smell tests. So we are going to the polls to vote for the least bad barrel of wine. How did we get here? Tzaddik haya b'doroto. He was a righteous man in his generation. We're going to do the best we can with the best we have, right? And it's said in Pirkei Avot, in a place where there is no man there, or human being, try to be a decent human being. No matter what, step up. Well, Noah, as a tzaddik, steps up in that he listens and listens to God. But honestly, what kind of a tzaddik is Noah? Noah is deaf to the people around him. And so God says, I have decided to put an end to all flesh. The earth is filled with violence, Hamas, and I'm about to destroy all the earth. Make an ark of gopher wood. And Noah did as God had commanded him. Aviva Zornberg, the great commentator of the 20th century, says, Noah is silent And that silence is an incurious silence. It's an exile of speech. He doesn't really care about other human beings. So imagine Noah. What happened to him? I'm my brother's keeper. Obviously, you're not. He followed the directions. And I'm reminded of another piece of, from my age, early on radio, where Bill Cosby, remember when he was a kindly old man? Listened to the whole thing and said, yes, God, what's a cubit? Right? How times have changed. But times are changing now in a way that is very reminiscent, not only for the violence of the times of Noah. We are in a time of tremendous change, and obviously of climate change. According to rabbinic tradition, it took 120 years to build the ark. They had to plant the cedar trees first. And with those planting of the cedar trees, you had plenty of time to watch the changes. God made it last 120 years so that you could take action, so you could do something about it. And human beings did not change. But Noah did not ask them to change either. And so Noah gets onto the ark. It is a horrible experience. The animals, imagine being locked up in an ark with your family and a bunch of animals who are hungry. And finally, when he gets off down the gangplank, the first thing we know that he does as a survivor is plant grapes. And in 3 years, he's got a vineyard, he gets drunk, he just wants to forget all of it. His children are disrespectful. He curses some of them, blesses some of them. We're back into family stories. And God looks at the story and says, Tshuva, I was wrong. I'll never do this again. I promise, and I will put my covenant as a bow in the clouds. As the earth endures, seed time and harvest time, cold and heat, summer and winter shall not cease. That's God's covenant. With Noah, we remember that when we look, Zocher Brit, look at a rainbow, and know there is always yet more to our story. Shabbat Shalom.